Back in 1982, toddlers from the Abercrombie Nursery School at Toxteth in Liverpool became stars of a series of Granada programmes called Under Fives. The Under Five programmes assessed in detail the state of provision of preschool education and the level of support at that time for primary carers of children. Abercrombie was unique then and remains so now, housing both an education and a social services facility side by side. 14 years later, all the major political parties accept the importance of preschool education in the development of young people. But what lessons can be learned from the Abercrombie experience? In 1996, when we revisited Toxteth, we found that some of the children who took part had achieved the predicted higher level of academic success. The real surprise was the success achieved by some of their parents, who were given the chance to get back into education. The toddlers in the original Under Five series have either reached or are about to reach the voting age. Education has again become a major election issue, just as it was when Alex was a child.
People who go through preschool education benefit because they learn to interact with other children younger and with other people. I think the earlier you can start, the more you benefit, basically, to be away from your parents, or to be with other people's parents, to be basically with new people is really important, because you learn to develop your own personality more with them and begin to detach yourself from just being your parents' children. You become more your own person through being with new, different people.
Dr. Penelope Leach, one of the UK's leading authorities in child development, took part in the original series. She still believes that despite the excellent work being done in Liverpool, not enough is being done nationally.
I know more than I did then. I think we've all learnt, I hope we've all learnt something. But one of the things that saddens me is that I don't think we've learnt nearly as much as looking at that programme 14 years ago. It told us a lot of things we haven't acted on, like it told us that Liverpool's combination of care and education did something special, and yet we're still fighting for the idea that you can't have care that is non-educational, or you shouldn't, that every child who needs care also needs education, and that every child in education of any age also needs care.
Another of the experts, Dr. Elizabeth Bradburn, an author and former lecturer in education, had this to say back in 1982.
I've been fighting for 40 years for it, and I'm prepared to go on to my last fleeting breath. For the sake of the children, we must, because they are our future. I like that Chinese proverb so much, which says the flowers of tomorrow are the seeds of today. And if we don't fight for our children today, there isn't much hope for the future. They are our hope for the future.
Dr. Bradburn kept true to her word and is still campaigning for children's rights.
I think the early learning environment is a bundle of opportunities. It's a window of opportunities for people who really care about children and also have a long vision, or if you like, a gleam of a visionary purpose. Because in the nursery you can learn everything that you need to know for later on, for living in a community. You see, you can't, in a nursery, run your engine right through a tower that somebody else is building. It's not on. You can't hit out at somebody with impunity. You can't have conflict with 2 or 3 here and there and take all the toys for yourself. All these things, sharing, responsible sharing of space and equipment and all that, are part and parcel of learning how to live in a community.
Lynn Boyne was able to get back into education without having to be too far away from her daughter. It's no surprise to see them still close together 14 years later, or to discover that Alison, having just passed 9 GCSEs, has clear views about preschool education.
All the memories I've got of nursery school are fond ones, and I think it probably, with there being a parent support group there, you know, my mum was there, mum and dad were there at times, and it was gradual, them leaving me there on my own. You know, I wasn't just thrown into being left on my own, and I was really little.
I think it prepares children for when they go to school, because it's a big step, isn't it? Being away from your parents for such a long time and having to mix with other children. And
I think a lot more time and money and effort needs to be put into education and to helping and advising young people at crucial stages in their life.
I think if you're really bright, it's often picked out and then you're given more attention than, say, other people who perhaps really need more attention, you know, because they're not so bright, or they're not so self-confident as others, you know, who are really clever and know that they're really clever.
I think right from the beginning, young people should be encouraged to enjoy learning, enjoy their education, rather than see it as something that they've got to do, you know, that they're forced to do.
I think people will probably do better in their exams, in the, you know, GCSE exams, and therefore be more inclined to stay on and do A-levels, and then probably go on to do degrees.
All the main political parties are adamant about their commitment to improving the level of preschool provision, much as they were 14 years ago. But they will still have to contend with the cynical view that parents and now their children have of political promises.
We lived in a top floor, horrible flat. We were living on the social security. When she was 3, you know, I had another baby. And there's an assumption that you're stupid. You know, that actually that single mothers and single working class mothers are stupid, and that you're never going to achieve anything, and your children are never going to achieve anything. And I think that's something that the nursery did give me, was an idea that actually I could achieve things. And I feel like, you know, I've done that, and it's been really hard going. But I hope that that's been some model for Alex as well, to see that she can achieve things. You know, and I feel like our class positions now are really different, because I think she's middle class. But a younger life was, I mean, now, you know, we have a nice house and I've got a job and she can go abroad on holiday, we've got a car, all that sort of stuff. But when she was at that nursery, our life was just absolutely, totally different. And I just think, you know, nobody had any expectations of me whatsoever.
Whether you decide to have children or you had children. She had 2 young children, was not working, was a woman, was working class, and it's just not expected that people in those conditions can do anything. Not that they will do, but it seems to me that they're never going. Yeah, but basically they are not worth anything, and perhaps people don't even think about it because people just don't even think they're worthwhile considering as potential employees.
Because I think in this society you can see how people without any economic power, whether they're young people or older people or disabled people or whatever, are just really not valued at all. And I just think that's got worse and worse and worse, so that, you know, it's as if the only people that see as having any value is like those people who are earning an income, and the higher income the better. You know, it is Thatcherism and it is materialism, and so those people who haven't got earning potential, they're just discarded, and children are like that as well. So it's as if, you know, they just really don't matter.
I think that there is now broad consensus, certainly including government, about the benefits that preschool education can bring to many, if not most, children. And I'm happy to confirm that now. And thus it becomes as much a question as to how we spread that benefit rather than simply whether, because it's been some many years since Margaret Thatcher, when she was Education Secretary, highlighted that she believed in expanding nursery provision.
Through the access to further education, Lynn Boyne went on to university and eventually to a career as a probation officer. She's recently been offered an even more senior social services post. In 1982, she had no qualifications whatsoever. Her friend Angela is now studying music at a local college and is hoping for a career teaching the subject.
Well, I initially went to the parent support unit because I was suffering with depression after a dad Ali, and my doctor knew that that support unit was there, and I went along. Initially I was really nervous to the mother and toddler, and took Ali along with me, and she did brilliantly there. She really began to shine because she was an only child. But so did I, because as a result of that I was allowed to go off and leave Ali and go and do some GCSEs at Millbank College. And we also learned things like typing, macrame. So there was stuff within the centre, but also there was the opportunity to get outside the centre and go up to the Millbank College, which was tied in with the parent support unit. And I can just remember it was really, really good for me. I mean, we had a women's support group as well of women who had just had babies.
I went there through the health visitor, really. I just had Adna, and she said to me there was a good nursery down the road, you know, taking down. So I just went down being shy. I just also thought, oh God, no. So I just got involved in whatever was going on. I still go and visit every now and again to see how things are going and what's changed. I've always been interested in music, but never actually realised, because I've done that in the nursery. I've done a lot of dancing, Asian dancing in the nursery. I'd like to teach. I think I'd like to teach because I like getting involved with children.
I think if you look back at a lot of the women in Abercrombie Nursery, a lot of us went on to do other things, because I went to Second Chance to Learn, and I was in that with about 4 or 5 other women who had been at the parent support unit with me. And like Esther and Lynn used to still help us. We could go back to Abercrombie even though our kids had gone to school. Even now she'll see Ali in the street, because she lived not far from us, and she'd say, oh Ali, you know, you've grown so much and how you're doing at school. And it was just, you know, they were just really welcoming to all women.
Being a parent in modern Western societies is a disadvantage. And that, I think, is the thing that is new historically, and we were beginning to see it in the early 80s, and it's become clearer and clearer. This is a society where we're very individualistic, we're very career-minded. Women as well as men, of course, have to be out there and want to be out there, earning and working, and having children is a disadvantage to that. You work the same hours, you earn the same money as a non-parent, but you have to spread both that time and that money over children as well as adults. So to be a parent is to be poorer, is to be busier, is to be more stressed than your brother or your sister who remains childless. And that's the starting point that I think is a bit sad.
It was rewarding to find success stories and good humour alongside the more obvious stories of disappointment. Since 1982, there have been traumatic social changes, ranging from accelerating divorce rates to a major shift in the nature of work. Young women like head girl Alex Cunningham are achieving a greater degree of academic success than their male counterparts. Young men face more of a struggle. Wayne Jonas, then a building worker, had a whole programme devoted to his struggle to find work. His natural ability with children was at odds with the conventional thinking in 1982, which assumed that women were automatically better carers. Wayne is completely self-taught. Now, apart from running his own computer business, he lectures on the subject and is regarded as a role model for male youngsters in Liverpool 8's black community.
Are you doing your class today?
The last 14 years, there's been changes. I've moved from a building site into the computer world now, so it's funny and hard as well. In the jobs where you require labour on the building sites, you've got to move out. You've always had to travel. When I was on the building sites, if you remember, 14 years ago, I was travelling up and down the country. So although I was there a lot of the time with the kids, I was also away a lot of the time, working up and down the country. We're not together no more, Hayley and Kelly's mother and I. And I've watched them grow up, and some of the things that they've done. Hayley playing football. I think she always had the tomboy tendencies. Kelly's more studious. So the last 14 years, there's been changes. As a breadwinner, even now my wife goes out to work, I go out to work. We're happy. Like, she works part-time, I'm full-time, but there's still enough time with the kids, weekends, night times. Like, sometimes it's a bit awkward for me because I work, sometimes I can work right through the evening.
Wayne's daughters are currently visiting his former wife in America, and he wouldn't be surprised if they eventually decided to settle there. He believes that countries like the USA offer more opportunity. In the 70s and 80s, women began to surge forward, setting the pace for change in society. Politicians in Britain may have reached consensus about the vital role of preschool education a little too late. Will the new generation of voters stay around long enough to see the benefits?
Now I'd like to go and work abroad in different places, experience different cultures, different ways of life.
I got 5 A's at my A-levels, maths, physics, economics, French and general studies. I'm going to university at Leeds to do economics and French.
I don't think I'd settle in Liverpool anyway. Not really, I think I'd prefer to live somewhere else.
Not here, not in England. I don't want to be living in England especially. France or Canada possibly. It'll probably be somewhere French speaking, given that that's the only other language I can speak at the moment, but I'm hoping maybe to learn more languages. Good job, but high powered, wear nice 2-piece managerial suits, nice car, nice house, money to spare, happy.
I think compared to certain other parts in the world, places in the world, it's quite backward really. It's not advancing at such a great rate as other countries are.
Statistics, such as the fact that 85% of the language that an adult will use is learned before the age of 5, has long convinced most childcare specialists that a longer-term view needs to be taken of this area and that it should not be influenced by party politics. Billions of pounds of taxpayers' money is being directed into infrastructure projects in areas of need. Abercrombie parents and children feel that funding would be better spent on people. Research in the United States has proved that for every $1 spent on preschool education, 7 get saved later in life. The problem for politicians may be that the result of such investment could take 3 terms of office to prove the case, as long as it's taken Alex to reach her 18th birthday.
Things like Objective 1 monies or SRB, they're just a sop, and if you look, I'm really cynical about it because that's actually the field that I work in. And you think, well, what has actually that done to improve the quality of people's lives? And it hasn't done anything at all to improve the quality of, real people's lives.
There's just not enough resources, and there is too many needs, really. And so all this investment, well, I don't think the projects are necessarily being targeted well enough, because they're not having the paybacks that they should be. The benefits of them are not being felt by the majority, by large numbers of people.
There are a range of ways in which we're trying, not just within education, but in the Health Department of Health, of course, also, to give greater support to parents, particularly working women, in delivering support for children where they have children under the age of 5. On the specific question of nursery and nursery vouchers, we've made clear that we would wish in time to extend that to 3-year-olds, but we haven't said deliberately when, because it will be a significant investment, but we see that being a medium-term objective. And of course there's been, as I say, a significant increase in funding for childminding, for out-of-school care generally, and a lot of this is providing valuable support to the parent and, of course, valuable care and education for the children themselves.
Well, I certainly think in Liverpool you've got to look at employment. Unemployment, I just think, is a scourge, because I think, how can you focus on bringing your kids up and introducing your kids to reading, books, literature, theatre, the countryside, when you haven't got enough, when you haven't got any bread and butter on the table? So, I think £1 invested in a preschool child is a £1 well spent, because I actually deal with children, young men who have been in trouble with the law, as you know, and I think there but for the grace of God go I. But the tragedy is the amount of talent and creativity in these people which is lost because nobody's bothered, the family haven't got the time, or they don't have the energy. The energy is put into survival.
Well, we as a party have a long-term commitment to providing qualified teachers in an appropriate environment for every 3- and 4-year-old whose parents want nursery education. But it's more than that. We aspire ultimately to having a smooth transition from care into education for all children under 5. It's vital for their future welfare. Research shows, both here and abroad, that it has such a lifelong effect on their success in terms of examinations, children's success at examinations, when they're adults, on the type of job record that they have. Their whole lifetime achievement can be preconditioned by what happens in the under 5 stage of their education.
As you know, I never did take up any training. I've got all the experience behind me, I've got all the paperwork to back up what I've done, but a lot of the problems here is on the surface it's seen as cosmopolitan, but in reality it isn't, because there's a lot of people here that can do the jobs that are available but are not given the opportunities to do them.
I think one of the really pleasing things now is that all 3 major political parties profess themselves to be in favour of early years education. The differences between the parties are therefore to do with the mechanics of how we're going to make it happen and for whom we're going to make it happen. The Conservatives have introduced their idea of the voucher scheme, which I think is a cumbersome and bureaucratic gimmick, and it doesn't really address the question of 3-year-olds at all. It's only pointing towards 4-year-olds. The Labour Party are much closer to us in the sense that they believe that there should be high-quality early years education for all 3- and 4-year-olds whose parents want it for their children. The problem for the Labour Party at the moment is that they've not made any specific commitment to the funding of that provision. So the Liberal Democrat difference from the other 2 parties is not only our commitment to it, our belief that it should be very carefully linked to care provision, but also a clear commitment to fund it. We recognise it's going to cost about an additional £1 billion a year in the early years, and we've said that to fund that, if necessary, we'll raise the level of income tax to pay for it. So important is it.
We've invested in a whole lot of other things that are kind of froth on the top, but our education, compared with most of Europe and most of the Western world, is pretty lousy. We haven't got the skills training people need. People haven't the opportunities they need. And I say this, even having just seen this marvellous piece of film, it's wonderful to see some of those people I knew as very small children, most of them crying because Mummy'd gone home and left them in the nursery, and that's, you know, mostly what I was concerned with in that series. Some of them have done wonderfully, but at what price? Where could they have gone if things had been made easier for them? How much faster could they have done it? How much more could they have put in to the society? I don't want people to look at that and say, there you are, it doesn't matter how underprivileged people are at 3 and 4 and 5 or as young lone parents, because it all comes out in the wash. If it does, it's all credit to them and not the opportunities they were given.
I've been lucky in that my parents are really good role models for me, and other members of my family. So, but I know some children don't have that. After having such a hard upbringing and everything, she's gone on to really achieve so much, and she's still going now. She's just got a new job.
I just wish that I would have got the education I deserve, because I think what I've achieved now, what would I have achieved if I would have gone from that very positive nursery experience into a positive education system, which I didn't. I was actually failed in the education system. You know, who knows, I might have been sitting in Margaret Thatcher's place 10 years ago and it would have been a completely different country.